Welcome to the Energy Talk Radio Show. Fun and inspirational talk radio making a difference.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking with Eric Pearl. He's an internationally recognized healer who's appeared on countless television programs, spoken by invitation at the United Nations, presented to a full house at Madison Square Garden, interviewed in many publications including the New York Times, and most recently featured in the film The Living Matrix. As a doctor, he ran a really successful chiropractic practice for 12 years until one day his patients started reporting that they felt his hands on them even when he wasn't touching them. And then they started having all sorts of miraculous healings from things like cancer, AIDS-related diseases, epilepsy, chronic fatigue syndrome, and the list goes on and on. And to this day, it still continues. He has a great new book out, and he does all sorts of lectures, and there are some amazing healing stories on his website, Reconnection.com. It's really a privilege to be here with you today, Eric. Thank you for joining us. You know, in looking at your story, the question comes to mind for me. Was it a surprise to you when people started having these like miraculous healings occurring?
Well, let's phrase it this way. I went home on a Friday thinking I was a chiropractor. I came back on a Monday and I was something else. Now, my parents had always told me that I was something else, but this was not what they had in mind. Was it a surprise? Hugely, except everything is an agreement that we make on some other than conscious level, but on the conscious level, it was a shock. What happened was I had gone to sleep, and an hour later I was awakened by this bright light, this intense bright light came bursting through my eyes, which wasn't anything, when I opened my eyes, seemingly spiritual or metaphysical. It was just the lamp next to my bed. It had decided to turn itself on. I had that lamp for 10 years. It hadn't selected any other propitious occasion to self-ignite, but there it was. And at the same time, it felt as if people were in my home. Now, I don't know how to explain how uncomfortable of a feeling that is. All I can tell you is I got up bravely with a knife, a can of pepper spray, and my Doberman pinscher and went hunting. After about 20 minutes of not finding anyone, I decided to talk myself into thinking that it must have been my imagination, and I went back to bed, still wondering why the lamp turned itself on. But that Monday when I went into my office, 7 of my patients, independently of one another, started telling me that they felt people in the room with us just the way I had felt people in my home. Some said it felt as if people were standing in the doorway. Others said walking around the room. Some said running. And 2 of my patients actually sort of lowered their eyes and lowered their voice and said, well, it kind of felt as if somebody was flying around the ceiling. So this was my 12th year in practice. No one had ever said that to me before. So 7 people in one day, you would think that that would have gotten my attention. But other patients that day are saying, I can feel your hands before you touch me. And of course I didn't believe them. So I would say, just lie down on the massage table and, you know, on the chiropractic table and close your eyes and relax. And I would bring my hands in near them and just turn and change direction or position, and they could tell me right shoulder, left ankle. I was anywhere from several inches to several feet to several yards away from them. They also started telling me that it felt as if there were 3 or 4 hands on them, 2 at their feet and 2 at their shoulders, and they knew I was just standing by their head, so it couldn't have been mine. They were reporting seeing colors that they had never seen before, colors with light emanating from them, that they were smelling fragrances of flowers that they had never experienced before, and they started reporting healings, real healings. They were getting up out of wheelchairs. Vision and hearing was returning. Children with epilepsy or cerebral palsy are walking and running and playing and speaking normally, not having seizures any longer. People are coming in showing laboratory results where their cancer tumors had vanished, all sorts of things. No, not everyone. Of course not everyone. Nothing is 100%. Medicine's not 100%. But a lot of people, enough so that we began to recognize that something significant was occurring. As this continued, people would call and say, what did you do? And I said, I didn't do anything. I don't tell anyone. And of course, the more I said that, the more people started talking, the more people started coming in saying, I'll have what she had. And the next thing we know, people are saying, teach this. I said, you got to be crazy. How the heck do you teach something like this? I'm standing there waving my hands in the air looking like an idiot. So go outside, wave your hands in the air, let me know what your neighbors think. But more and more, my patients would call and say, when I got home, I pulled up in front of the house, and before I hit the automatic garage door opener, the garage door opened, or I walked inside and the lamp of the TV would turn off and on, and I felt sensations in my hands. I would hold my hands by someone in my family, and my uncle could walk again after the stroke, the grandmother regained her speech. We began to discover what science has later confirmed in multiple double-blind, controlled, randomized studies in peer-reviewed journals, that once you interact with this new bandwidth of healing, and science is very clear that they feel that this is new, that it's different, that it's very real and it hasn't been here before. Once we interact with this, something becomes changed within us, and they've measured how it affects our DNA. They've measured how, right now, we just got some phenomenal research back from the University of St. Petersburg in Russia, where it's changed the blood. It's improved the blood to a higher level. Now, of course, you know, still the DNA was, you know, equally exciting in many ways as well. But what's interesting is that science explains that what is now referred to as the reconnective healing spectrum is so broad that it encompasses not just the subsets of energy, what our energy healing techniques give us, Reiki, Jirei, Jin, Qigong, Mahjong, Beijing, EFG, XYZ, 1, 2, 3, Alpha, Beta, Delta, Gamma, you know, pretend to zip yourself up sideways and triangles and, you know, hold your hands in Japanese positions. Takes us way beyond anything that can be accessed by a technique, because by virtue of it being a technique, you hone in on something, like you hone in on a part of the heavens when you're studying the stars with a telescope, but you lose the rest of the vista. We've had subsets of energy because everything here has been energy. We've been existing in this little four-dimensional playground, or bubble as quantum physics describes it. The wall, the cell of the bubble, is comprised of height, width, depth, and time, our 4 dimensions. The interior has been energy, and all of our energy healing techniques have been parts of that. But suddenly time is expanding, which means that our bubble, our playground, is opening up and expanding. So we're accessing more of what has always existed out here in the universe, so therefore is timeless, but hasn't been within our bubble before, so for us here it's new. Now, I will tell you, this can royally piss off a lot of people in the New Age community who want everything to be old so their ego can say, yes, I remember this from my past life experience as Cleopatra for the 37th time when I was in Atlantis and bilocating in Lemuria. You know what? Sometimes something is just new, and isn't that wonderful? Because we really are also here for what's new. So the reconnective healing spectrum, first of all, the only way we can access it is by transcending technique. It is not an energy healing technique. It is about the transcendence of technique itself, so that we're no longer just mastering energy healing techniques, we're mastering healing. The spectrum is comprised of energy, light, and information, aspects of which have not been seen here before. Dr. William Tiller, Professor Emeritus from Stanford University, said after multiple studies that the only way we could begin to possibly attempt to reproduce just some of the changes in the room from the reconnective healing spectrum would require that we heat the room to a temperature of, get this, over 300 degrees centigrade. 300 degrees centigrade, which is about 576 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a genre, a field of healing that is so comprehensive that it includes, incorporates, and gives us everything ever accessible through energy, and then a whole new world of healing. And the funny thing is, I thought that the people who would be the most excited about this, the people who I would have thought would be the most keyed in, would have been the energy healing technique teachers, And the people least excited would have been mainstream, medicine and surrounding. It's turned out to be just the opposite. Because the healings are so dramatic with reconnective healing, because there's so much clear-cut evidence even besides the research, but because the healings tend to happen fairly instantaneously, because they tend to last for a lifetime, so you don't need to go back and do it again and again, all these distinctly different things that I speak at hospitals and universities, present to governments, because the world is looking for something new. And the people I thought would be the most open, the energy healing technique teachers, they're like this. Because they don't know how to teach. Nothing. They're afraid that if they can't say, here's the next level of the technique, and my guides tell me to come back in 5 years and you'll be ready for the next level of the technique, that people won't be coming back and keeping their butts in their chairs. The teachers say, come back and learn more, come back and learn more, write me another check, my husband loves to deposit them, come back and learn more. And yet, what is it that the masters always say? They tell us, don't come back. The masters are the first ones who explain to us that they're not teaching us in the first place, that we're simply allowing ourselves to evolve by being in the presence of this consciousness. The teachers want us filling the seats, and the masters say, don't come back, I need that chair, because there will always be the new student, as long as there is truth to be taught. But what allows us or limits us to or from accessing this work has to do with our willingness to transcend the doingness of the technique and to step in to a state of, as Michael Beckwith explains, observation without judgment. Now this is a little tricky because we're told to make and do all these changes. And the first judgment comes about just when we talk about transcending the techniques. But you know what? It doesn't matter how many stars in the heavens we study. We won't be able to recreate or comprehend the heavens until we put the telescope down and access it. And our techniques are like telescopes. Our techniques are like training wheels on a bicycle. Most of us learn how to ride a bicycle with training wheels. It wasn't necessary for some people learn without, but most of us learn with training wheels. Once we master the bicycle with training wheels, then our parents knowingly remove the training wheels so we can master the bicycle itself. Now, if it were left up to us, we might have been a little nervous about that, not so sure we wanted the training wheels off. We might have taken our bicycle down to the training wheel store and said, what can I do now to be better? And the person who owns the store would be more than happy to sell you a second and third and a fourth and a fifth set of training wheels. But our parents who are watching out for us go, no, training wheels off. That's how we honor the training wheels. The true gift of the training wheels comes only in their removal. The true gift of the technique does not come from adding technique. It comes in the transcendence of the technique. And this is where sometimes the energy healing teachers are like the training wheel store owners. You know, it's a way to keep the doors open. But if we come to do what we're really here to do, which is not to teach people to master energy healing techniques, but maybe to help people step into the mastery of healing, then we can leave from that poverty consciousness of fear, lack, and limitations, the illusion of separation and darkness, and step into love, prosperity, light, abundance, oneness, unity, and say, I am simply going to teach a higher level. And by doing so, I don't have to concern myself with who I'm going to get to come back next year and sit in that chair. I don't want them back again. I want fresh meat. I want the excitement of working with new faces and turning on more minds.
Wow.
Not that I have an opinion on the subject.
That's really encouraging. I mean, because I've studied a lot of different techniques and stuff like that, and what I found for myself is I seem to be getting further away from that feeling of like I'm fine and I'm connected with the universe and I feel full and peaceful. I feel less that way the more I try to learn all these different techniques and practice all these different things, which is frustrating because you know, I'm a human. I want to do something about it. You know, I want to make it better and learn something new and everything. So what is it that you do for people to help empower them or to get them on this path, and then what do they do with it after that?
Well, first, let's hit this point you were talking about. The technique is really the separation. Think of it, if I'm 10 feet away from you and I want to get to you, you can give me a technique. Step halfway again, step halfway again. And the illusion is thinking I'll ever get there. I'm getting closer, and that keeps me in the cycle, but I'll never arrive because I'm only stepping halfway. At a certain point, you need to experience and own the forward movement, but now transcend the technique and simply step into where you're going, simply arrive. So it becomes a glass ceiling, and that's why you feel so separated. Think of this as everything does come from either fear, lack, and limitation, or love, prosperity, and abundance. And healing obviously resides in love, light, prosperity, abundance. But you can't really give something that you don't own to give. You can't give something that you're unwilling to accept or receive yourself. You can't stand over here in fear, protecting yourself in a white flame and a purple flame and pretending to pull up little zippers and shake off negative energy and spray yourself down with alcohol and facilitate healing that resides over here in love and light. You can't stand in a consciousness of limitation and lack by adding crystals and wands and certain colors, strings and little amulets. Because then you're saying that if you need something to be more, you're telling the universe that you're only recognizing that you're less than 100%. Because healings reside in abundance. You can't stand in a place of poverty consciousness where you can squeeze a healing in only on an occasional Saturday because your day job is something that doesn't make your heart sing, because you were told that you can't be in fair financial exchange for healings because it's a gift from God. Of course, heaven forbid someone asks you what isn't a gift from God, but that'll be another interview. And instead, provide the healings that reside in prosperity and abundance in all aspects of our lives, which also includes allowing people to come to you and be in fair financial exchange with you so that you can continue to help the next person. They can receive the value of what they've exchanged for, and you can do what makes your heart sing, touch people with healing all day, every day.
You know, this is just such fascinating stuff, and I would love to have an opportunity to speak about a lot of these different topics with you, and I think that you're opening up a lot of good questions and some answers for us, because honestly, I've been at a place at moments in time where I felt truly peaceful and truly happy, and like whatever I was doing was exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And I find myself outside of that 99% of the time. And I think it's so funny to be trying to get somewhere, but then in the trying to get somewhere, you're already out of it.
That's the glass ceiling. Yes. You know, when we talk about, well, let me answer in these last couple of minutes that question you asked me earlier, because if I start on a new topic, we're done. You asked how we show this to people. It's really quite simple. When I do seminars, and you can go onto the Reconnection.com, there are seminars going on all around the world. I travel 45 weeks a year. We have 3 other teachers, Doug DeVito, Kelly Woodruff, and Christine Upchurch. We're the 4 main teachers of this work. What happens is when I give a seminar Friday night, it's usually a 3-hour presentation. We talk about the history, the theory, how this came about, the science. Then we bring up some volunteers from the audience to give live demonstrations of the healing so you can experience it yourself or see it, or maybe someone that you know from your community. And then we give everyone a chance to feel it in your hands. But Saturday and Sunday is different. It's a real working seminar. And so the first thing I tell everyone is don't come don't come if you think we're all going to sit around, hold hands, om, and sing Kumbaya, my Lord, because it really won't happen that way. This is my personality, and many, many, many people will attest to the fact that I don't get prettier. It's a focus class, and you are there to focus with me. There's a stage in the center of the room, chairs on one side, massage tables on the other. We demonstrate a level of the work from the stage, then we go to the massage tables in groups of 2 or 4. I walk around to each of the tables, so does our dedicated international team of teaching assistants. We show you how to glide your hands a certain way and say, now look, notice what you feel here. And when you begin to feel it, maybe the person who's lying down on the table, you'll probably see their eyes begin to rapidly dart back and forth and back and forth. And then we'll say, okay, now feel around until there's something else, and you'll go, here it is, and now watch. And you'll see their feet move or their fingers move. And when you start to correlate, when I'm feeling this, I see this. When I'm feeling that, I see the other. You start to recognize the reality of what this is. It's just like if I show you, if you push this hand west, it goes west, and east, it goes east. After you do that once or twice, you own it. You can study the physics of hand pushing for the next 40 years. You won't own it any better because it's not about knowledge. It's not about going to mystery schools. It's not about going to some place in the desert for 3 months, 3 times a year, for 3 years, for $300,000. It's about stepping into a state of knowingness. So we go back to the seats, we discuss what we did, we talk a little bit more about the philosophy, demonstrate the next level, go back to the tables. This is the weekend. And by the end of these 2 days, not 2 years or 2 months or 2 weeks, by the end of 2 days, I can pretty much make you 2 or 3 promises. A, you'll be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that I can do. B, you'll be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that any human being on this planet can do, whether they were raised by monks in a cave in a mountaintop in Tibet and fed grains of seed, each one flown in the beak of individually hand-painted chakra-colored birds, or whether they moved to a church deep in Brazil and changed their last name from whatever they were given to of God. It doesn't matter the story. It only matters our willingness to transcend the story. The key to this is that this allows us to transcend technique, to do less, to bring about more. The challenge is whether or not we're willing to. The key to this is that this allows us to completely demystify the healing process. The challenge is whether or not we're willing to allow it to be demystified. And the question is, if we're not willing to transcend the technique, to do less, to accomplish more, we need to ask ourselves why. If we're not willing to demystify the healing process so that it becomes clear and transparent for everyone, we need to ask ourselves why. And if we're not willing to ask ourselves why, we need to ask ourselves why we're not willing to ask ourselves why, because it is within that question that lies our next step into our own mastery.
Oh, wow. That sounds really exciting and very encouraging. I really appreciate that. And I'm excited to learn more about this. I'm going to look at your website, thereconnection.com, and find out where I can come and participate with this, because it sounds like
well, if you want to come right now to New Orleans, I'm teaching this weekend.
Oh, cool. That's great. New Orleans.
And we're in New Orleans, and there's Cape Cod is coming up, and there'll be a Los Angeles seminar in October, and one in Manhattan, I think, in October or November, or September. You know, all those months sound the same to me, but there's lots. There's lots. I just flew in from Zagreb, Croatia, to do here. Afterwards, I go back to Amsterdam, and then I think Chile. That's great. Wow. Very encouraging. I'm glad that this is being accepted by a lot of people, and it's really exciting when these ways of healing and stuff are understood by scientific minds, because I think it helps our logical minds sort of embrace it, and I think that that's really encouraging when we can get our quote-unquote spiritual mind and our quote-unquote logical mind to meet. Well, I've got a lot of friends who are researchers now because of all the research being done on reconnective healing. But I will tell you, I say one thing to them that doesn't necessarily endear any of them. I think the most important thing about the scientific research is not the conclusions. It's just the fact that the research is being done, because that's what tells people that something real is there, and it allows people to look at something that otherwise they might not. It's the same reason that on the book cover the publisher has my title, Doctor, in front of the name. I mean, I am a doctor by license. It has nothing to do with the healing, but those two little letters, DR, is what allows people to pick up that book and look at something that they otherwise would have ignored. So, you know what? Whatever opens doors, more power to it.
Oh, that's great. And thank you so much for being with us today, Eric. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And I appreciate everybody for joining us today. I hope that you will find out more about Eric Pearl at thereconnection.com and go to one of his events. It sounds very exciting, and maybe you'll see me there. And until then, I wish you all peace, love, and happiness.
The Energy Talk Radio Show. Fun and inspirational talk radio making a difference.